They called me Ray from the garden. The nurses, the orderlies, the charge desk on the pediatric floor. Ray from the garden, like it was my last name. I didn't mind. Margaret would have loved it. I'd been coming to Millhaven Children's Hospital for 3 years by then, as a father watching his daughter fight, then as a volunteer, when I realized I needed somewhere to put my hands during the hours Nora slept. Fixed door hinges, repainted hallway trim, rewired a supply closet that had been tripping a breaker since 2019. The head of facilities, a tired man named Lou, stopped questioning why I showed up and just started leaving me a list. It suited me. I was better with my hands than with sitting still. Nora was 14. She'd been sick since she was 11, and she had faced every year of it with a composure that shamed most of the adults around her, including me. She had her mother's eyes and her mother's way of watching a room, steady, measuring, warm all at once. On bad weeks, she was thin and pale and quiet. On good weeks, which this was, she held court from her bed with the authority of someone who had decided that whatever time she had, she was not going to waste it being afraid. It was a Tuesday in October when she saw the woman in the corridor. I was coming back from the supply room with a replacement faucet cartridge for the family bathroom. Another thing on Lou's list. When I heard Nora, voice carrying through the open door, bright and certain, the way it got when she decided something. "You're not from here," she said. I stepped into the doorway. A woman had paused in the hall outside Nora's room. 50s. Well, dressed in the particular way of someone who wore good clothes, the way other people wore work clothes. Naturally, without thinking. She had a small laminated badge clipped to her lapel that said something about the foundation tour, and she was looking at Nora with the expression most people got. A flicker of not knowing what to do with a sick child who spoke to you like an equal. "No," the woman said, "I'm not. I'm Nora, that's my dad." She pointed at me without looking. "He fixes things. What do you do?" The woman glanced at me, a brief, assessing look, and then back to Nora. "I run a company and a small foundation." "What does the foundation do?" "Fund places that look after people, hospitals, gardens." She paused. "Actually, I'm here to see the garden." Nora's face changed. "Dad built the garden." The woman looked at me again. Something shifted in her expression, though she kept it polite. "Is that so?" "My wife designed it," I said from the doorway. "I just did the labor." That was mostly true. Margaret had been a landscape architect before she got sick. In the last year of her life, she had drawn every inch of that sensory garden on paper. The raised beds, the winding path, the water feature, the bench positioned to catch the afternoon light through the east glass. She never saw it finished. I had built it with her drawings pinned above my workbench and her voice in my head telling me when something was wrong. The small foundation grant that covered the materials had come through a few months after she died. I had never met anyone from the foundation. I had signed the paperwork, cashed the check, and gone to work. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Nora asked the woman. Just like that, no preamble, the way she did everything. "I'd like to hear about the foundation." The woman smiled. It wasn't a polished smile, it was surprised and genuine. "Try," she said. She came back. Her name was Claire. She had run her company, a mid-sized medical logistics firm, for 18 years, and the foundation alongside it for 12. She sat in the chair beside Nora's bed the second day and answered every question Nora asked with the same directness Nora used. And I sat across the room and watched my daughter work through a stranger like a careful engineer checking tolerances. By the third visit, Nora had decided Claire was acceptable, which meant the rest of us could relax. I wasn't looking for anything. I want to be clear about that. 3 years of hospitals and paperwork and holding Nora's hand through things no father should have to watch. I had gotten very good at keeping my world small and manageable. Claire was kind to my daughter, and so I was grateful to Claire, and that was the whole of it as far as I was concerned. But on the 4th day, she came early and found me in the garden before Nora's afternoon therapy session. I was reseeding a section of the ground cover along the north path. A dry September had killed a patch of it, and I heard her footsteps on the gravel behind me and stood up. She was looking at the water feature, the small recirculating fall of water over flat stones that Margaret had, specified down to the grade of the rock. It still ran clean 3 years later. I was proud of that. "It's remarkable," Claire said. "Seen the photos in the grant reports, but photos don't do it." I didn't say anything. Brushed the soil off my hands and watched her move along the path, reading it the way people read something they didn't expect to find beautiful. She stopped at the small bronze plaque set into the stone at the garden's entrance. I had put it there myself, last. It had taken me longer to get that plaque right than anything else in the project. Margaret's name needed to be there, and I had not wanted it to look like a gravestone. It needed to look like an invitation. Claire read it. She stood still for a moment longer than a person usually stood reading 4 lines. Then she turned. "Ray Calder," she said. "Not a question, yes. The grant application." She said it slowly, like something coming back to her from a long way off. Millhaven Pediatric Sensory Garden. I read every application myself that year. I remember the drawings. She looked at the path, then back at me. "Margaret Calder was your wife." She was. I approved that grant 2 weeks after she died. Her voice had changed. Quiet, careful. I remember because the application had come in before, but there was a note that said she'd passed, and I wanted it to go through. I didn't say anything for a moment. I had not known that. The paperwork had just come through, the way paperwork does, and I had assumed it was routine. "I didn't know it was you," she said. "The foundation processed dozens of grants a year. I knew this garden. I've sent every toured group through that east corridor since it opened. I didn't know it was you." The afternoon light came through the east glass the way Margaret said it would, falling across the path in long, warm bars. I had built this place for her, and for Nora, and for every family that came here carrying something too heavy to put down. I had not built it to be seen. But standing there with Claire looking at the plaque, at the path, at the water falling clean over the stones, I felt something ease in my chest that I hadn't known was tight. "She drew it on index cards first," I said. "Before she moved to drafting paper. The whole thing on index cards, sitting up in the hospital bed. Nora used to hand her the markers." Claire was quiet. The water moved. "Nora was 8, I said. She thought she was helping design it." "She was," Claire said. "I thought about that. I suppose she was right." We sat on the bench together for a while, the one position to catch the afternoon light. I don't remember exactly how long. The hospital moved around us. Footsteps on the path. A child's voice somewhere behind the glass. The distant sound of a cart in the corridor. We talked about Margaret's drawings, about the grant process, about what Nora had asked her yesterday that had made her laugh out loud in the elevator on the way down. Claire talked about her own father, who had been a carpenter and who she had not understood until she was 40. I talked about the index cards, and about how I still had all of them in a folder in the truck. She asked if she could see them sometime. I said yes. When I went back upstairs, Nora was awake and had that look she sometimes got. Calm and measuring and a little too satisfied. "She was in the garden with you," Nora said. It wasn't a question, she was. Nora folded her hands on the blanket and looked at the ceiling the way Margaret used to, when she was right about something and didn't need to say, "Tss." I sat down in the chair beside her bed and took her hand. The afternoon light had shifted and was coming through the room's window now, thin and gold. I had come to this hospital 3 years ago carrying everything I had left. A gravely ill daughter, a dead wife's drawings, a set of tools and not much else. I had not known what I was building. I still wasn't sure. But Nora's hand was warm in mine. And somewhere below us, the water was still running clean over the stones. And I thought that Margaret, who had always known how things were supposed to go, would have found none of this surprising at all.